Are you a basketball player that wants to be one of the smartest players on the court? Do you want to make it easier for your team to score and make it frustrating and difficult for other teams to guard you? We know that one of the best ways to build confidence is through having a better understanding of the game and how you play the game. So today, I'm going to share one of those simple habits of play that you can implement to stand out on the court. Let's jump in and discuss. Welcome back to Hard Smart Together. I'm Coach Dave. I'm here every week to help basketball players become the smart, confident players that coaches love. So a few weeks ago, I was talking about how you could become a more dangerous player against zone offenses and how you could help any one of your coach's strategies against zone defenses be that much more effective. And we were talking about at the time the tempo of passing around the perimeter of a zone, okay? And so hopefully you've started to think about that and implement that, because we want your coach's strategy, no matter what it is, to be that much more effective against a zone. So this is another subtle difference, but it's a great habit of play to get into that's going to make you a more dangerous offensive player, make your coach's philosophy against zones work even better, and really make you stand out as a player and give you more opportunities to score and give you more opportunities to allow your team to score more easily. So let's review just quickly what the strategy against a zone is. And it doesn't matter, how you accomplish this strategy, how your coach implements plays against a zone. I'm sure there's a lot of different ways, but in general, you want to burst the bubble of the zone, okay? And that's done in a whole range of ways, okay? A lot of times it's cutters to the middle of the zone that perimeter players are trying to, hit. And then you might have, players behind the zone at that point that they might dump down to. You might have, you're trying to shift the zone. And so therefore you can quickly get it to a perimeter player that might be a really good shooter, take good shots, and you can shoot over the zone by shifting the zone, by getting it into the middle, collapsing it. Other ways that you can collapse the zone, you can drive the zone, you can screen the zone, you can post against the zone. But the idea is to either get, really good outside perimeter shots or really good inside shots against a zone. This is just a habit of play that you can implement that's going to make that much more simple for you and simple for your team to score. So, hey, I'll get back to the episode in just a second. I hope you're enjoying today's episode, and if you are, please share it. Share it with a player, share it with a parent, share it with a coach, anybody that you feel might need to hear it. I also wanted to give you a free gift that I've made available to you just for hanging out with me today. It's a checklist of skills for basketball players that want to become a better player, a better teammate, and to stand out to their coaches. Now, these skills are skills that are often overlooked, but they can be the foundation that a player can use to really achieve their goals. You can download it at hardsmarttogether.com/intangibles. I'll put a link below in the description as well, but it's hardsmarttogether.com/intangibles. Now let's jump back to today's episode. Today we're going to talk about spacing. And I'm sure your coach talks about spacing as far as your spacing of your offense against a zone, because you're trying to make it more difficult. Now, zone, if you're playing a zone defense, you have a series of rules and responsibilities for who guards who. Because remember, you're in a general vicinity, but then you're typically shifting to kind of a one-on-one defensive positioning with some help from the zone, right? But whose responsibility is it to guard a man, a player, when the ball is here versus here, or it skips, or it gets into the middle, or whatever the case might be? And players, because of the fast pace of the basketball game, can get confused about their roles and responsibilities in a zone. That's why zones are so, coaches typically think they're easy to play, but that's why to play a really great zone is really difficult to do. So they have these rules. These rules you can take advantage of. You can take advantage of them to make things easier with your team. So spacing doesn't just mean how far you are from other offensive players, although that's important. I'm sure coach covers it. The spacing I'm going to talk about is the spacing between you and defenders, specifically on the perimeter. Okay, so if you find yourself on the perimeter of the zone, typically you're like, okay, I'm on the wing, the zone's shifting, I'm waiting, I'm kind of in one spot, or I'm along the baseline against the zone, I'm on the perimeter or up top, or wherever you find yourself on the perimeter of the zone. And players are not very conscious about the spacing between defenders and themselves. Okay, and I'm not just talking about the primary defender that's in your space of the zone when you're on the perimeter. If you're on the wing, you're going to have either somebody from high in the zone or somebody low in the zone, or could be a wing zone person in certain zones that are closest to you. What I want you to be conscious of is both that player, that defender, and the next available defender that might be, for instance, if you're on the wing and there's a high defender and a low defender, I don't want you just to maintain spacing between one of them. I want you to maintain an equal amount of spacing between each one of those defenders. So if you find, they're kind of, far apart from each other, and you're really close to one, I want you to adjust your spacing so that you are an equal distance from each one of those defenders. Okay? So while you see the zone is constantly shifting, defenders are constantly shifting, you as an offensive player on the perimeter need to be conscious of where the defenders are, and you need to be subtly shifting your positioning on the perimeter. What does this do? What this subtle shifting does is makes it confusing when you get the ball, right? Because, like I said, they have rules and responsibilities based on who's closest. But what if they're an equal distance apart from you? Well, now there's kind of a hesitation, a confusion about whose responsibility in the zone it is to maybe close out, to stop you from shooting, to stop you from driving. And that's all you need, is that little hesitation from defenders in order to make it easier to maybe drive, shoot, pass, hit the middle, whatever the case might be. Okay? So a lot of players just aren't conscious of where defenders are, and they don't know that subtle difference of, oh, I'm going to make this really difficult on these zone defenders. I'm going to constantly be shifting my positioning within your coach's philosophy. It doesn't have to be a huge shift, but as the defenders are moving, you're moving as well. You're not stationary. Make it difficult on the defenders to guard you. Make it more difficult for them to guard your team. So that's the habit of play that you want to implement, and what you want to start being conscious of is, what is my positioning in relation to the two closest defenders to me? And I want to, as often as I can, be an equal distance from both of those defenders. Okay? If you find yourself right up on top of the defender, you might want to back up. If you find yourself closer to one versus the other, you might want to shift over. It depends on where you are on the court, where your shifts are going to be. But if you start implementing this habit, you're going to find yourself open against the zone on the defense, open against the zone on the perimeter more often than not, and you're going to find yourself with more time in order to make decisions because the defenders are going to hesitate. They're going to become confused. You might have two defenders run at you at the same time. You might have one defender, start and then say, oh, they're coming. Oh, no, I'm coming. It's just going to open up a world of opportunities against the zone defense for you. So that is your habits of play tip for the day. I always love the comments. If this was helpful, please leave a comment below and let me know how this is helping build your basketball IQ and your habits of play and therefore your confidence. If this is something that you think other players that you know could use, a message they could use, please feel free to forward it on to them. And until next week, remember to play hard, play smart, and play together. See you next week.